Okay, a wonderful good tavach, everyone. Wonderful thing to get together and to start learning Torah together on the beginning of a new week. Tu Blat, Chidei Skula, warriors of the Daf. And we'd like to especially welcome in father and son team, the Eisenbergs, and wish a very big mazel tov to the Eisenberger family on the very beautiful simcha that they had. Okay, if you remember, we have a machlokes Rav and Rav Kahana. I'm getting there. We have a machlokes Rav and Rav Kahana about if you do half. Is half like the whole thing? So we are holding by Tajma 4 lines from the bottom of Chav Ches Amud Beis. Tajma, 4 lines from the bottom of Daf Chav Ches Amud Beis. Tajma, here we're learning in Masechtas Kalim. So Choku L'Shnayim, if you divide an oven into 2 halves, it was Tameh, and you divide it into 2, V'hein Shavin, and they're exactly the same. Shneim Tameim, both are Tameh. Why? Because the one that's the majority is Tameh, and you don't know which one is the majority. L'fi she'iyaf shelitzamtzem, you can't calculate so close. So you have to be concerned that either one might be the majority, and therefore they're both Tameh. But if you could calculate that each one is exactly 50%, then Tahirin. So, but the Gemara asks, according to Rav, who says that Machza al Machza is like a Raiv, according to Rav, then both should be Tani, Zilhachi Ikaruba and Zilhachi Ikaruba. Each one that's 50% is like a majority. Papa, no, by Kalim you can't have 2 majorities in one Kalim. Trey Rube Bechad Manoleka, you can't have 2 majorities in one Kalim. Tajma, Shachat Chatzi Gregris, if you shechted half of the windpipe, Vishaba Kedei Shrita Acheres, and then you paused enough the time to do another Shrita, so that's the Psil of Shihiyah, Vigamra, and then you completed it Shritas Aksher. Now the idea is because the din is if you find half of it cut, it's still good. It's not a treifa. So therefore, if as long as you did the last cut, what makes it the majority, it's good. But if, like Rav, Machz al Machz is a half, is like a Raiv, so if V'yamrit Machz al Machz a Raiv, if Machz al Machz is like a Raiv, so then it means that Raiv was cut, and then you paused, and then you did the second simon. It was already a treifa because you paused. Says the Gemara, "Mi savri behema." You think we're talking about behema? Leiba eif. We're talking about a bird, and therefore mamanavshach. Im mechza mechza karayv. If mechza mechza is karayv, then you did the whole thing. You did half before you paused. Ha'avad le'ruba, because by a bird you only need 1 simon. And im mechza mechza ain't a karayv, so then it doesn't count, because if only half is pogam and you finished it off the right way, it's okay. The first half doesn't count. Tajma, hari shahoya chatzi kana pogam. Half of the windpipe was cut through. But then you did a proper shchita to make it into the majority. But that's good according to Rav Kahana. The mechza is only half. But then it was already a treifa. Because half is like a majority was pogam. Rava says no, treifa is different. Shani treifa is shani lenient treifa. In order for it to be a treifa, you need a discernible raiv. So mechza will never be a raiv by treifa. Amalei Abaya says then for sure by the shchita you should need a discernible raiv. Amalei Abaya, v'loy kol dechenu, then it shouldn't be a kol shchenu. Ma treifa the mashu b'mitrefa. There's certain things that are treifa with a mashu, like the veshit is a treifa if it has a hole of a mashu. Heichad ba'in ruba, but when you need a roiv, ba'in roiv anir leinayim, shchita the ad ikaruba loy miskasha, that until you have the majority, it's no good. Like kol shchein the ba'in roiv anir leinayim, for sure you should need a roiv anir leinayim. So therefore now the Gemara says we're going to change the whole pshat over here. Change the whole pshat. Ella the kuli alma mechtzal mechza ain't a karev. If you shecht only 50%, it's no good. Where's this machlokes between Rav and Rav Kahana in a specific case? The machlokes between Rav and Rav Kahana is only by the Korban Pesach. We know the rule by the Korban Pesach is that if the majority of the klal is tohar and the minority is tameh, so then the majority does the Pesach on Pesach Rishon, and the minority is pushed off to Pesach Sheni. If the majority is Tameh, they do the Pesach B'tumah. What's the din if 50% are Tameh and 50% are Tahar? V'chi yitma de Rav Kahana linyan Pesach itma. It's about Pesach. We're on 29a, about 15 lines from the top. V'chi yitma de Rav Kahana linyan Pesach itma. Harishaya Yisrael, the nation of Israel, was mechza tahirim and mechza tamei. When it came to Pesach Rishon, half were tar and half were tamei. So Rav Amar mechza al mechza karayv. Rav says mechza al mechza is like a rayv, and therefore, since mechza al mechza is karayv, so the people that are tamei do the Pesach on Pesach Rishon. And since those that are tar are also arrive, so they do the Pesach B'tara. So you have two groups. You have the mechza 50% that were tamei, they're considered a majority, and a majority could bring the Pesach B'tumah. And the 50-50 that are tar, they're a majority, so they bring the Pesach B'tara. Rav Kahana mechza ain't a karayv. Half a half is not a rayv, and therefore the half that are tar bring it on Pesach Rishon. The half that are tamei are pushed aside to Pesach Sheni. So the Gemara says, so how come if normally 50% is not a raiv, why does Rav say here by Pesach it is a raiv? V'asa my time of the Rav, the chsiv, ish kiyel tamei l'nefesh. And the individual that's tamei l'nefesh is pushed to Pesach Sheni. But a group is not pushed, and 50% is not yechidim anymore, and therefore they're not pushed, but they do the Pesach B'tumah on Pesach Rishon. Now, if you remember, there was superfluous language in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, if you look back to the beginning of the parak, the Mishnah said twice, it says Roiv Echad Ba'if and Roiv Shnayim Bebehema. So first it says Ruba Yishal Echad Kamayu, that a Roiv is like the whole thing. And then at the end of the Mishnah again says Roiv Echad Ba'if, Roiv Shnayim Behema, Shchitas Kshera. So it repeats itself. It already said in the beginning that a Roiv is good enough. Says the Gemara, Roiv Echad Ba'if, Ushnayim bebehema tanina chadazimna. It says that in the beginning of the Mishnah, Ruba Shalachad Kamau, that the majority is enough. Says the Gemara, one is talking about Chulin and one is talking about Kachim. One is talking about Chulin, one is talking about Kachim Mitzricha, and you have to say it by both. The Ashmin on Chulin, if it only said Chulin, over there it's enough with Raiv because you don't need the blood. You don't need the blood. Aval kachim, where you need to sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach. Aval kachim de l'damu tzarach emalei tiskalei beruba. I might think it's not enough with a raiv adi kekule until you do the whole amount. V'yashmin kachim, and if it would say by kachim, since mishum l'damu tzarch, that's why you need a rive. Aval chulin l'damu tzarch, but we don't need a rive. Ema b'pal d'sagale, I might think 50% is enough. Kamash malan. So now the Gemara asks a technical question. Which part of the Mishnah is talking about chulin, and which part of the Mishnah is talking about kachim? Hey b'chulin v'hey b'kachim. So now the Gemara has a few proofs that the beginning of the Mishnah is talking about chulin, and the end of the Mishnah is talking about kachim. As the Gemara says, hey b'chulin v'hey b'kachim. 3 lines into the wide lines of Daf Chav Tes Amud Aleph. Amrav Kahana mistabra reisha b'chulin v'seifa b'kachim. It's mistabra at the beginning of the Mishnah is talking about chulin, and the end is talking about kachim. Mimai midiktani hashoichet, because in the beginning of the Mishnah it says hashoichet, which is a lashon of shchita. Now, if it's talking about kachim, kachim doesn't have shchita; it has malika. V'yisog da'it reisha b'kachim. It should say malika, pinching it from the back of the neck, which is the procedure by kachim. Elamai seifa b'kachim, but the seifa says shchitasa ksheira. But if the seifa is talking about kachim, milikasa ksheira b'boile. Says no, that's okay, because that's just for symmetry. Once it said shchita in the reisha, it said shchita in the seifa too. You know, there's a concept of ID, symmetry, either because it's nicer, or because they learned it by heart and it was easier to remember. Haloi kasha, ID the salak mebehema, since the reisha is talking about behema, which is shchita, tani nami shchita ksheira in the seifa. Ela reisha michtei. But reisha, let's examine. If al reisha michtei aloifka, it's talking about a bird. If it starts with kachim, it should say hamoilik. Isal g'dait b'kachim hamoilik mebayilei. So it must be that the reisha is talking about chulin, and that's why it starts with shchita. Rav Shimi Ba'ashi says another proof that it's the reisha is talking about chulin. Rav Shimi Ba'ashi Amar reisha b'chulin mehacha. Diktani echad ba'oif, one in a knife. Now, that's not true if we're talking about kachim, because by kachim the oilas oif needs 2 simanim. V'yisok like the kachim ha'ika oilas oif the b'yishnei simanim. Remember, you have to separate it. Elamai seifa b'kachim. It says roiv echad b'oif. It says the majority of one by a knife, but that's not true because oilas oif needs 2. Ha'ika oilas oif the b'yishnei simanim. Says well, no, that wouldn't be a kasha. When it says roiv echad, it means roiv of each one. My roiv echad, roiv kol echad ve'echad. Now, really, it would have been nice to be able to say ubedinu the list ne roiv shnayim. It could say the majority of 2, but that wouldn't work with the chatasai if we only do 1, because it says lo yavdil. Kemedika chatas desagele bechad. It's enough with 1. Simin mishamachi lo psikale. It just said roiv, and therefore it means roiv of each one in the case of the oilasayif, and roiv of 1 by the chatasayif. Rav Papa says another reason why we know the reisha is b'chulin. Rav Papa amar reisha b'chulin mehacha. Diktani Rabbi Yehuda Aimer at sheyishchet es avridin. Rabbi Yehuda says that by an oif it's not enough to shecht 1 siman, but you also have to cut the jugular veins. Now the Rabbanan argue on it. Or pligi Rabbanan alay. Now that would be good if it's chulin, but if it's by kachim, of course you cut the jugular because you need the blood. Iyamar b'shleim b'chulin shaper. Eliyamar b'kachim, why would the Rabbanan say you don't cut the jugular? Amai pligi Rabbanan like who atzma l'damo tzarch. We need the blood to sprinkle on the mizbech, so of course you would cut the jugular veins. Rav Ashi Amar, yet another proof. The Gemara is very good on dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I'm telling you, it's amazing. We come to learn Torah Lishma, and we're on a total of 14 minutes, and we're almost ready to learn an Amud of Shas. We learn to be Mekayim Mitzvah Dibar Tabam, La'asos Nachas Ruach Liyotzreinu. And look at all these wonderful people that are joining us. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. Rav Ashi Amar Seifa b'Kachim Mehacha. The Seifa is talking about Kachim Diktani. The next Mishnah continues the Seifa. HaShoichet Shnei Roishin Ke'echad. If you cut two heads at the same time, the Shoichet cuts two heads at the same time. Shchitasek Sheh, which is a lashon of b'di'evet. HaShoichet, the evidin l'chadchila, only if you did it already, but not in the first instance. So, we have a drasha that l'chadchila you should do one animal at a time. Hainu de l'chadchila loy, mishum detani Rav Yosef. It says in the pasuk. Let's get the right gears over here. It says in the pasuk Tizbach. Now, we learn Tizbach. Shelo yehi shnayim shoichtin zevach echad. Two people should not shech together one carbon. Tizbachuhu shelo yehi echad shoichet shnei zvachim. One shouldn't shech two karbanos at the same time. Now, how do you know that from Tizbachuhu? Remember, there's no nekudis. And therefore, we could read it, Tizbachehu. Only slaughter one. Rav Kahana, we could read it as if it said Tizbachehu ksiv. You should only shecht one at a time. Eliyamid b'chulin, why does it say hashoichet if you shecht two at a time? In a de'evet, it could even be l'chadchila. Eliyamid b'chulin, afilu l'chadchila nami. One more proof. One more proof. As we welcome in Gedalia, on the bottom of Chaf Tes Amud Aleph, Gedalia, the Afrab Shimon ben Lakish Savar, Reisha b'chulin v'seifa b'kachim. Reb Shimon ben Lakish says that the Reisha is talking about chulin and the seifa is talking about kachim. Dam Reb Shimon ben Lakish, me'acha sheshaninu rubai shel echad kamayu. Since it says already, one raiv, a raiv is like the whole thing. Lama shaninu, why does it say at the end of the Mishnah again, raiv echad ba'ayv v'raiv shnayim b'behema? You know why? Because it says something by kachim, by the tamid. Every day we offer the perpetual offering of the tamid in the morning and the afternoon. Now, when it's done on Yom Kippur, Lefi Shaninu, Heviu lo yasat tamid. They brought the Kohen Gadol the tamid. Kertzai, he cuts the majority. Omeirik, now the Kohen Gadol is very busy. He cuts the majority. Omeirik achash shchitas al yadai, and someone else finishes it. So I might think that finishing it by kachim is necessary. Yachal lo meirik yehi pasel. Lekach shaninu raiv echad ba'ayv v'raiv shnayim b'behema. So we see that he also holds that when it says Raiv Shnayim B'Behema over there, it's talking about Kachim. Amamar, Yachaloi Meirik Yeh Pasel. I might think that if the second person doesn't finish it off, it's possible. But then that means that the second person finishing it off is necessary. If it's necessary, then how could somebody else do it? On Yom Kippur, the avodah has to be done solo only by the Kohen Gadol. Im kein avilei avodah ba'acher. When the second one finishes, it's an avodah done by someone else besides the Kohen Gadol. B'tanya kol avodas Yom Kippurim ein ksheres elabai, can only be done by the Kohen Gadol. Hachi kamer, no. B'daraisa it's good. But Yachal yei pasel midrabanan, I might think it's pasel midrabanan. The Salkadai Tachamina, ikip sil midrabanan, if you don't do the whole thing. So then if it's not even possible to Rabbanan, then why do we have somebody else finish it off? So the Gemara says there's a Mahadran and a Mahadran. The Mahadran is it's mitzvah lamarik. It's a mitzvah to do the whole thing. Now the Gemara takes us into a new sugya. And I've been guilty of not saying our wonderful dedications. Shalom Fogel, Mishmi Yaakov Zev ben Yudaya, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tziv Yamirim Bas Gad, Yosef ben Tzion ben Yaakov Zev, Lefu Shalema for Moshe Aryeh ben Miriam for his chus of a good shidduch for Chaya Tzivya Bas Shoshana Gittel, a great shidduch for Batya Bas Sarah, by Menachem Yamansky, that he and anyone else that needs a shidduch should find it quickly and easily, by Mark Frankly, Lenishmas Ilana Chana Bas Yosef Avram, by Ed Salah from London, Lefu Shalem for Yosef Shmuel ben Miriam, and for a healthy mommy and a healthy baby, especially for Ariel Simcha Bas El Zarifka. And again, we learned for our Chaver Adaf Aaron ben Sarah, who's having a heart surgery on Monday. We learned for Yitzchak Mordechai ben Esther Bracha, for Moshe Meir ben Esther Fadel Vigdai ben Rivka. They should have a Refu Shalema, B'Seich Shar Cheli Yisrael. Reb Shimon Lakish, Mishum Levi Saba. Reb Shimon Lakish says in the name of Levi Saba, Eina l'shchita ela b'seif. When doing the cut of the shchita, what is considered an act of shchita is only the last part. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, no, yeshna l'shchita mitchila v'atseif. The ritual of shchita starts from beginning to end. Amar Rava. So Rava now draws the parameters of the machlokes. Hakol moedim heichad shachat siman echad ovid kechavim. If a guy shechts, let's say the food pipe, v'siman echad Yisrael, and a yid shechts the windpipe, it's no good because it became a treifa from a guy. She psula sharinasa b'maisa treifa b'yad ovid kechavim. That's definitely no good. But oilas oif nami, an oilas oif which has to be done above the Chut HaSikra, above the red line, bisecting the height of the Mizbeach. Heicha demolek simen echad lamata, if he did the malik of one simen below, the simen echad lamala, psula, because he did one simen like a ma'isa v'chatasayif, shari asa b'ma'isa v'chatasayif, lamata. Lo nechlaku ela kigang sheshachat simen echad b'chutz v'simen echad b'fnim. What happened is that Mark shechted one siman outside of the Azara and one siman inside. Now, for shechting kachim outside of the Azara, you would get chorus. So Lamandi Yama Yeshn l'shchita mitchila v'atzaif, he did a chorus offense, mechayiv. Lamandi Yama ein l'shchita ela b'saif, he didn't do a ma'isa shchita outside, loy mechayiv. Amalei Rabba Bar Shimi, Mar loy amahachi. The master doesn't agree with this. Umana Rav Yosef. Heichad deshachat simen echad b'chutz v'simen echad b'fnim nami pasel. Why? Because he did a ma'isa shchita of a chatas ha'oif on the outside. That's considered a ma'isa. Because for a chatas ha'oif, one simen is enough. She'asa b'ma'isa chatas ha'oif b'chutz. Lo nechlaku ela kigang sheshachat miyat simanim b'chutz. He shechted a miyat of the simanim on the outside, v'gamru b'fnim, and he completed it on the inside. Even though it's only a minority, it's a ma'isa shchita, and he's chayiv chatas, mechayiv. The mark is not chayiv, loy mechayiv. So now the Gemara takes us to the paraduma. Paraduma, which we know we shecht and we burn to use its ash to sprinkle on the third and the seventh day for those that are tamei. So Masav Rebbe Zera, kolo asukin b'para, whoever is occupied with the ritual of the paraduma, mitchila v'atzayif, from beginning to the end of the ritual, mitamim begadim, they become tamei, and their clothing becomes tamei. And if they multitask, they passel the paraduma by doing something else at the same time. If a psul occurred in the shchita, bein kaidim psula, bein achar la'achar psula, whether before the psul happened or after the psul happened, eina metama begadim, that not metama begadim. So that means that if something went awry during the shechita, whether you were occupied before the shechita or after the shechita, you don't become tamei. What's
wrong?
Bahaza asa, in the sprinkling, if some psul happened in the hazah, kaidem psula, if he was involved before the psul, matam begadim la'acha psula, but once it's disqualified, ain't a matam begadim. But now here's the problem. The amrit yashnul shchita mitchila vatzayv. If the act of shchita is viable from beginning to end, so lifna gnami b'shchitasa should make a distinction in the shchita. Ira b'psul b'shchita. If a psul happened in the shchita, kaidem psula, when you were cutting before the psul happened, let's say he did a drasa or a chalada, before the psul happened, mitama begadim. La'acha psula, after the psul, ain't mitama begadim. Says the Gemara, no. Amar Rava niskalkal shchita kamrit. You're talking about where the shchita gets ruined? Where the shchita gets ruined, like I said, with a drasa pressing down a shehiyah, so it's megala retroactively. Shani hasen digloi milson lemafreya the live shchita iklal. It wasn't a shchita at all, and therefore, since it wasn't a shchita at all, no one that did it before or after is going to become tamei. Says the Gemara, Amar Rava, you're right. That was obvious. Amar Rava, ikashali hakashali. If something is difficult to me, this is what's difficult to me. According to the Mandiyama, that shchita is only at the end. Live like bechsheira de para. Let them argue about whether the para is kosher. Going to shachta betray gavrei. Live like bechsheira de para. Let them argue where the para is not disqualified, but bechsheira de para, where the para is good. But here the para was shafted by what a team. Is Eddie here? Where's Eddie?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here.
Oh, you're in the dark. See, you have to understand, Rabbi say that if Eddie's in the dark, there's a reason. There's a reason. The contraband is on the table. Says the Gemara, live like bechsheira de para, where it's a proper procedure. But going to shachta betray gavrei, Mark started, and Eddie finished. The gavra kamaloi mitama. Mark won't become tamei because ain't l'shchita ala b'sayif. The gavra ba'aser mitama, and Eddie will become tamei. Amar Rav Yosef, trei gavrei b'chad zivcha tamei. Could two people shecht at the same time one carbon? Bar minadahi. That can't be what we're talking about. The tanina tizbach. And we dash in singular, shelo yishnei shnayim sheichten zevach echad, and tizbachu is shelo yeh echad sheichen shnei zvachim. That one shouldn't shech two zvachim, because remember we said Rav Kahana tizbacheyu ksiv. It's as if it said tizbachu only one. But the bottom line is you see that two people can't shecht one carbon. Amalei Abaya, but that's only one shita. Amalei Abaya lav itmar Allah Amar Rabba Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan Zu Divrei Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon. This is the opinion of Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon Stimta. Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon is a lot of times an anonymous Mishnah is Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon. Aval Chachamim Maimim Bei Sheichun Zevach Echad. Says the Gemara, yeah, but even if it's going according to Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon, or Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon Nami Liflaik, Kigain the Shachat Chad Gavra, where Mark did the whole thing. But he switched turbans in the middle. You know Mark, he's a fashionista. So he switched turbans in the middle. You know, like these, these stars that switch in the middle, right? He switched in the middle. He wore a red turban in the beginning, a green turban at the end. The Suda kamaloi mitami because ain't l'shchita lo b'seif. The Suda b'aser mitami, and the latter Suda is tame. Says, you know why we didn't say this difference? Simple. Because we're not talking about a kosher para. We're only talking about a puzzle para. Ela b'psula de para kamayri. We're only talking about a puzzle para. B'echsheira loy kamayri. We're not talking about a kosher para. Okay, Rabbi says it's hard to believe that we already finished the first daf. I know Michal Abram is looking. Time goes by when you're having fun. You know, that's a way, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Siyata d'shmaya. There has to be a siyata d'shmaya with such a big island. You know, when we mitzvah to it, all our viewers on Torah Anytime and listeners on Kol Lashon and viewers on YouTube and people that listen that get the digital recording, it's a big tzibur, and with a big tzibur there's a big siyata d'shmaya. So we're going to just pause a moment to change over the tape over here.